So let's do this then. Thumbs up. Okay. So I'm going to do a share screen. Okay. And then while I'm doing that, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Dr. Quinn Dang. I'm in 2 departments. I am in the Department of Health and Human Performance, which is what our presentation is on today. But I also work in the College of Innovation and Design, working with freshmen only. So it's a great combination. Okay. What we're going to be talking about today is I'm hoping that you guys came because maybe several reasons is that you are thinking you might want to major in health and human performance, but there's several degrees under it and don't know which one, or maybe you're trying to decide. And so I'm going to give you the ins and out of that, and hopefully that'll help you. Okay. So let me share the screen. And all right. So let's see. Hopefully you can see the presentation right now. Give me a thumbs up on this if you can see the share screen right now. Yes, yes, awesome, great. Okay, so let's do this, okay? So first of all, let me educate you about something, okay? So the department is called Health and Human Performance. That is not the major, that is the department. So when somebody says my major is Health and Human Performance, that's impossible. Your department's Health and Human Performance, but that's not your major. We're going to talk about the separate majors underneath because there's several different ones, and I'll explain to you what they are, what the jobs can do. And yes, they're similar. Like a lot of the majors underneath this department have maybe 6 classes the same, but okay, so we'll start. So the first one we'll talk about is teacher certification. So what this is teaching all level kinesiology. You know this as PE. So this is when you can teach and coach K through 12, okay, in Texas. You must be certified to teach to be able to coach, okay? So in other words, when people say, I just want to coach in the state of Texas, that is not possible. You have to be certified to teach in the state of Texas to be able to be a coach. Now you can teach whatever you want as long as you're certified, meaning that, you know, if you're certified in art, you can still be a coach. If you're certified in history, you can still be a coach, right? It doesn't have to be within us. It can be in a different area, okay? But there's no such thing as I just want to be a coach, okay? Is that clear? Now, other states can be different, but in the state of Texas, which we're in, you have to be certified to teach to coach, okay? So that's called teacher certification. You'll go through all the classes, and then in your very last semester, you do student teaching, right? Which makes sense because that's when you get all your experience, okay? And then, you know, you'll put in for, we have a bunch of school districts, and then they'll match you, and then you'll get your experience from that, and then hopefully get a job from there, okay? So our next major is called human performance. So what this one is this is our science part, meaning this is the major you want if you want to go to physical therapy school, occupational therapy school, med school, dentistry. So this degree is mainly to go on to something else, okay? So obviously this has been very popular over the last 10 years because of physical therapy school. A lot of us played sports, got hurt, went to physical therapy. We're like, oh my gosh, this would be the coolest job, okay? So this is the thing we say. So this usually goes on to other more schooling, graduate school, like we said. You can do research with this, work in laboratories, cardiac rehab, and the Cooper Aerobic Center, which is in Dallas, which looks like a college campus where they do a lot of research, and it's a semi-medical wellness facility. Let me talk to you about this major, okay? So a lot of the people who go into this are, like I said, physical therapy. That's not a problem. Again, the #1 major, but what people have got to understand on this is that currently physical therapy is harder to get into than medical school. Physical therapy is running a 3.68 to get into, while medical school is only running a 3.5. Okay, And if you're wondering why, it's several reasons. One, a lot of people don't want to be doctors anymore because of the huge liability, getting sued, in other words, and also the hours, like being paged, you know, at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. If it's your daughter's 5th birthday and it's, you know, your patient, you have to leave. And so physical therapy is way different because for most physical therapists, they work 8 to 5, 9 to 5, very set hours, okay? But the problem with physical therapy is that on average, so for example, in the state of Texas, there's 11 physical therapy schools. On average, they will get 700 applicants each year for 50 positions, okay? So that is why it's so difficult to get in. And so people will always ask me, well, if Texas knows that, why don't they get more physical therapy schools? It's easier said than done because as a professor, I make less money than I did when I worked in corporate. Does that make sense? So that's why it's tough to get professors because they make less than if they worked, quote unquote, outside the real world. I took a $20,000 pay drop to become a college professor. My mom thought I was crazy. So that's the reason why there's only 11 physical therapy schools, okay? So obviously this is my 16th year here at Commerce, and obviously I've had tons of students who have become physical therapists, have worked now for a while. We usually bring back somebody every year as an alumni ambassador, somebody who's done well in our department. They come back and they talk about their experiences, how they got where they were, stuff like that. One of my girls, she was on the track team here at Commerce, and she ended up going to UT Southwestern PT school, and now she's a pediatric physical therapist. And she told the class, which I didn't know, that in her last year at PT school, they get to vote on the incoming PT class. And she said every single person that just interviewed, had a 4.0. So that tells you, if you're cringing, that means obviously some 4.0s got denied, right? Because obviously everybody did the interviews can't get a spot. So that tells you how competitive it is. And so then the audience was like, and she afterwards, she goes, Dr. Quinn, I'm sorry, should I not have said that? And I said, no, that's great. I was like, I'm going to take you to lunch because whenever I say stuff, sometimes they don't believe me. So I'm glad that you said it. Okay. So let me tell you this. I'm not trying to scare you. If you do want to go to physical therapy school, it is a great profession, great profession. But you've got to know that you have to make all A's and B's with no exceptions. They do not like C's because the competition is so stiff, okay? There's other areas people can look into, occupational therapy. We have a nursing program and we work very well with them. We actually moved into a brand new building where it's us on the bottom floor, nursing on the second, research on the third. And so, you know, there's an option where I think is very good option that some people don't think about, and that's PA school, which is physician's associate. They're very doctors, except they don't do surgery. They can diagnose, they can write scripts, and I think that's a great option. And so I feel like people sometimes only think about certain things that they know, but it's about the jobs that they don't know about, right? That could be end up being their career, okay? All right, so moving from there, the next option is public health, which obviously right now, this is a huge buzzword with what's going around. So public health, obviously, you know, is one of the biggest areas of public health is what's called epidemiology. What that is using math and statistics to figure out where diseases come from. So for example, if you're staying in the news right now, how did we know that, you know, coronavirus came from China? How do we know where it came from? Epidemiologists work backwards. They see where the big numbers come, they go there, they study it, they do the numbers, and then, you know, like they have to figure out where it started, how it spread, how did it come to the US? And it's neat. So it's investigation, but also doing math, right? Asking the right questions. And so this has become a very popular major, especially right now, since it's in the news a lot, okay? Besides working for city, state, public health, you can also work in health clubs, hospital wellness centers, corporate facilities, which is actually where I came from before I became a college professor. I worked for a Fortune 500 company running their wellness center. And we got bought out, and we got bought out by what you know is Bank of America, right? So my pension is with Bank of America. So love that job, best job of my entire life. And then you can work at YMCAs, and then of course university fitness and wellness programs. Another option within public health, as you see here, there's a lot of different things you can do. And that's the one thing that's overwhelming. You know, you can be a personal trainer, you can run health fairs, you can be a community health educator. Like sometimes I have some kids who specialize in being a diabetes health educator because they had so many people in their family who had diabetes. And when people say, oh, I got bad luck, I got diabetes, the majority of diabetes is not bad luck. It's because of your diet and your genetics, right? And so the next major, we'll skip the skills there. Oh, before we get to the next major, it's talking about, is this the right major for me? You want to work with people and that you have good people skills. It's not saying that you have to be an extrovert like me. My brother says that I would talk to a cow if it moved at me, but you do have to want to help people, right? Definitely this is a field you want to help people. And for example, you know, like people who want to go in sales, it's a lot because sales can make a lot of money, right? Compared to this field, right? You can make obviously pretty decent money in this field, but sales is where you can make the really big money. But if you think about it, you're not helping people as much in sales as you are in this field, right? All right. And then let's talk about the other majors, sport and rec management, okay? So on this one of the things that we require with sport and rec management is a minor in business, because sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry if you think about it, okay? I'm sure you've heard in the news that because of everything being canceled, you know, not just the sports teams losing money, but the big colleges lose money because football brings in so much money. And then that affects the other sports because football helps finance the other sports, right? Okay, so the one thing about this though, is that people tend to think, oh my gosh, I love sports. I breathe and talk sports, but that isn't what this major is about, right? It's the business side of sports, okay? So in other words, back in the day, I used to work for the Dallas Stars. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's a hockey club. I worked in community relations. And I loved the job. So every time a player went out, one of us would have to go out, one of three of us would have to go out. We ran the auctions for charity, you know, like the hockey pucks, the signed jerseys, the signed hockey sticks. It was a very fun job. I won't lie to you, okay? But the problem was I was making $19,000 with a master's degree. And so I was very, very skinny. Let's just say that much. And so sports is the only industry that is backwards, where the blue-collared worker, meaning the athletes, get paid the most, and the white-collared workers, meaning the office, gets paid the least, okay? And, you know, my hours were erratic, meaning that, you know, on days that weren't games, then you work 8 to 5, but days that were games, they'd let me come in at 9, but then of course I was getting home at like 2 in the morning once the game was over, right? So you've got to think about stuff like this. Although it sounds glamorous, you know, in this field, you don't start making the big money until you're way high up, right? Like vice president, GM. And think about it this way. There's 32 football teams, which means there's only 32 GMs, right? And so think about this. Although this is fun and this is great, it's not the immediate, I can make tons of money in this, right? The media plays up stuff like, oh, Jay-Z's a sports agent. Yeah, but you know, that's, first of all, he couldn't do it in Texas, because in Texas, to be a sports agent, you have to have a law degree. So it's also depending on which state you're in, right? So just to cover that, it says, is this the major for me? You're gonna have to do massive marketing in sports and rec management, because think about it. It's easy to sell a winning team, right? But if your team is a losing team, how do you get people to go, right? Budgeting, coordinating, working with the media, publications, advertising. And okay, so that's pretty much the brief version of what our majors entail. So let me do this. Let me get out of this share. Give me 1 second. And I'm gonna have you guys either talk, you can unmute or type in the chat. Either way, doesn't matter to me, but tell me if you were to go to this major, or if you already know, type in which major you want to be out of the ones we learned about today. Go for it. Go ahead and type in the chat for me. Which major did you want? So remember, sport and rec management, public health, human performance, or teacher certification, which is all level Kines, right? So which major did you want? What is your ultimate goal? Let's see what you guys have to say here. Okay. Okay. All right. So perfect. Okay. So out of the ones that answered, sport management. Okay. And so Victor, tell me in sport management, like right now, if you could pick, what would your dream be? Like what would you want to do in sport management? Crystal, public health, Gemini, good. So you're a major in business with a minor in sport management. That's strong. The reason that's very strong is because in life, everything is a business. Every single thing is a business. Even me as a professor, it's a business to get students here, right? So I think that's very strong. And then Jocelyn, you want to do marketing. Okay, Jocelyn. So let's clarify that a little bit. So when you do marketing, there's two different ways you can do that. You can either go public health and do event planning, you know, like health fairs and market stuff that way, or you can do sport and rec management and do the sports side. So which one were you kind of thinking? The more the health side or the sports side? Because that would kind of tell you which way you want to go. Does that make sense? See you guys typing. Yes, yes. All right. So let's say this. Let me ask you this next question, okay? So tell me the reason why you're considering our major. Like why health and human performance? You know, in other words, why not art? Why not history? What makes you interested in health and human performance part? Tell me that. So a lot of people have different answers here. While you're typing, I'll tell you my personal story and how I ended up in health and human performance, okay? So when I knew I was going to go to college, well, I always knew I was going to go to college, but when it came time to pick a major, I loved math. I still love math. And I wanted to be a high school math teacher. And so that's what my major started off being. But my parents at the time were like, no, you're not going to be come out making $19,000 as a public school, high school math teacher, which is how much, I'm from Missouri, how much people were making in Missouri at the time as a high school math teacher. So that kind of bummed me out because I was like, oh, you know, and so I was like, what else do I really like here? And I played sports all throughout junior high, high school, loved it, you know, loved my teammates. And so I was like, okay. So I researched and I went to the University of Oklahoma for undergrad, and they had a degree called Health and Exercise Science. And at the time it was a smaller department. Now it's the #1 major at the University of Oklahoma, but, and I loved it. And that's what my undergrad degree is in. And so I always knew I'd be a teacher. I just feel like I teach bigger kids, adults, instead of little kids. And so it was a good compromise. My parents didn't want me to be a poor, quote unquote, teacher. And so now I'm still a teacher, but I just teach bigger kids instead of little kids. So my parents are happy that I'm not poor, right? So it's just weird how you have all these plans in life, but you know, you can still get what you want and still everybody's happy, right? But let's see what people are putting in here. More about the body, because my mom, oh, that is a great answer. Okay, I'm going to tell you, if you love the human body and you want to learn about what it can do, this is definitely the major for you, regardless of which one you pick, because that is what our department is. It's the study of the human body, right? It's, you know, it's amazing because You know, sometimes we'll get people who don't understand and they're like, because in our department, no matter what you are, you have to take AMP 1 and 2, which is anatomy and physiology 1 and 2, because it learns all the 208 bones over the 650 muscles, right? And sometimes people will complain. They're like, I don't understand why I have to do that. I just want to be a coach. And it's like, how can you be a proper coach if you don't know how the body moves properly, right? So if you think about it, even when we watch professional sports and the amazing catches, the amazing plays these players do, you know, I watch not just for the winning part. Of course, winning's fun, but I watch because I'm like, do you know how hard that was for him to go down, be able to stop on a dime, drop his leg down before he goes out of bounds? I mean, that part is the unbelievable part to me, right? You know, and so that is a very good answer. If you definitely love the human body and want to see what it can do for you, if you treat it right, because that's the amazing part. When people complain about their bodies, a lot of the times it has to do with how they've treated it and genetics, right? It's not just bad luck, right? So that is an amazing answer. What about the rest of you? What have you guys got for me? Why else are you guys thinking health and human performance? There's a reason you came to this lecture, right? You can just be honest and say, you know, the name sounded interesting. You can say, you know, I play sports and that's what I know. That's fine too. So let me see what else you guys got here. What else is somebody else? Why did you guys come to this presentation? What makes health and human performance interesting to you? Why are you considering this major? All right. Okay. Okay. So what about this question then? Okay, great. To get more info, learn more about the careers, options. Okay, so let me ask this one then. What about, you know, and my job isn't just to get you to come to my department, right? My job is actually to help students find the right major for them. So, you know, why don't you tell me like what other things you're considering, you know, and like, why would you want to go that route? So here's an example, right? Like sometimes people will say, which is not a problem at all, guys, is they'll say, well, I like too many things. And that's totally fine. Okay. But the thing, my job is to tell you, you know, what options you have for going into that, right? And so I'll give you an example, okay? So I had a former student who was older, way older. She was actually my age. She had raised kids and then she finally went back to college. But she couldn't decide between, she had been a swim instructor this whole time, right? You know, because she could teach swim lessons in the summer when her kids were off and then be a mom during the regular school year. But then she also liked music, right? And so I told her, why don't you become a music therapist where you can combine music and therapy at the same time? And she's like, oh my gosh, right? So that is one of my jobs, is to listen to you about what you want, what your needs are, and help throw things out there to get you thinking about it. There's so many things out there that people don't consider. I actually have one who just finished pharmacy school. It's very rare I get a pharmacy kid because most pharmacy kids major in chemistry, right? But what happened with him is he started off as our major and then ended up getting a pharmacy tech job at Brookshire's, the grocery store. And then he said to me, I want to be a pharmacy tech. And I said, okay. I said, I'll tell you what to do. I hate to lose you as a student. And he goes, oh, no, I want to stay your major. But with a lot of these majors, like PT school, OT, any of those, you still have to do your prereqs. So in other words, you can still major in art, history, any of that, but you still have to do the prereqs. And the prereqs are usually your 8 hardcore sciences. AMP 1 and 2, which is anatomy and physiology 1 and 2, biology 1 and 2, chemistry 1 and 2, and physics 1 and 2. And then depending on, you know, other things like nursing requires microbio, occupational therapy requires another sociology class, but most of them are only different by 2, if 3 classes at the most. And so what we try to tell people is, if you want PT from the beginning, which isn't a problem, but why don't you apply to PT and OT? And if you get both, good, you can decide, right? But don't corner yourself and just apply to one thing. And then if you don't get in, you're like, I don't know what to do now, right? So we always say, have a backup plan, because the best case scenario is you don't have to use it, right? Okay. Yes. Yeah. Gemini, you have a great game plan with a business major and a minor in sports. Yeah. Because then if the sports part doesn't work out, you can still do business, and business is in everything, right? So that's a really, really good game plan. Just understand that in business, the only part that scares people is obviously it's required accounting and economics, because some people are scared of math. And but that's required no matter what. Even in the minor in business, you have to do accounting and economics. But if you're not scared of math, you're good to go, right? Okay, so, all right, so let me ask this then. What question did you have in your mind before you came to this that you were hoping that I would answer, or did I already answer it? Because I'll answer it. The one thing about me is I'm a realist, meaning that I don't sugarcoat things. I'm not going to tell you everything is puppy dogs and cattails. I'm not trying to scare you, but I try to lay out the facts so you guys can make very smart decisions, right? Because that's what life is about. It's about making smart decisions and always having a backup plan. So in case something doesn't work out, which is fine, you move to that backup plan, because you just don't want to, put all your eggs in one basket. And then if that doesn't happen, you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Okay. So let me see what you guys have here. What kind of questions did you have coming into this? Besides wanting to find general info, breaking down the majors, did that help my slides and the differences of the majors? Hopefully I made that very clear, which one would be which, depending on which job you'd want to do. Yes, yes. Oh, Gemini, that's great that you've already started accounting. Very good. Okay, so all right. Okay, so let me tell you this. We, on average, the statistics show that students change their major 2.5 times in their lifetime. And so guys, it's not a problem, like if you want to come in as undecided, that's not a problem either, okay? It only becomes a problem once you're a junior and you haven't decided on a major. And the reason why is because that's when you start getting into your major courses. And then if you end up deciding to change, then it might take you longer to graduate. Does that make sense? Because different classes, right? That's why at the beginning, you start off with all core classes, the classes everybody takes, math, English, history, stuff like that. And then you start getting into your core classes, right? You can always, as a freshman or a sophomore, you start with, you can start with one major class to see if you even like it. If you do well, then you can go on, right? My hint to everybody is that if you do not do well in a major class, couple of reasons for that. One, you might not have liked it, which says that it might not be the major for you, right? Okay. And so you've got to seriously think about that. I tell people when you do not do well in a class, that is a sign that maybe you weren't interested and that might not be the major for you. Bella, so there's 2 minors you want to do if you want to get into PT school. You can either do interdisciplinary studies, which will take all the requirements for PT school and put it in as your minor, or you can do biology. We have people doing both, either one, right? So those would be the best track for you. Okay, so Victor's question, venture in the sport, would you say the real, yeah, Victor, I would say the low pay initially and the hours, right? When I was you guys' age, the hours didn't matter to me, right? Because I mean, who cares? You want to be out, to be working, productive. So at that time, the hours didn't matter to me. But think about it later. If you want to have a family, married, kids, coming home at 2 in the morning from work is terrible, right? So, I mean, obviously, once you work your way up higher, you don't have to do that anymore, but it takes a while. Does that make sense? And yes, the low pay sucks at the beginning. And the problem with sport management is everybody wants to be in sports, regardless of if your major is that. And I'm going to give you an example, okay? So one of my students, you know, he did his internship, finished his degree, and he was at the American Airlines Center. And so the only job opening at the time was for a parking lot attendant. And so he took it. And I know you're thinking, what? He worked as a parking lot attendant with a college degree? But his game plan, which worked out great, was that he's like, I'm going to do this for 6 months and show them how hard I can work, what I can do. And then I'm hoping to move into the pro shop store, right? And then just work his way through, right? Because you got to learn all the areas before, you know, because here's the thing that people don't understand. You just don't become a manager by getting a management degree, right? You have to work your way up, right? And so he worked as a parking lot attendant, showed them exactly, and his plan worked out beautifully. Then he went into the pro shop and then worked that. And then now he is actually a management in security for American Airlines Center, right? So working all the different areas. And I'm sure during the 6 months he worked as a parking lot attendant, I'm sure he had ugly things said to him. Like, come on, dude, you're a parking lot attendant. But he was a parking lot attendant with a degree. And you just be proud of yourself and know that you have a goal, right? You know, and he had a goal, and I'm very, very proud of him that he didn't think being a parking lot attendant was beneath him, right? And so life is about having goals, having backup plans. And so, Victor, you know, sport management can be a great field. You just got to think about the side stuff that some people don't think about. You know, people just see all the glamour and they think they want to go that route. But it's, you know, with every job in life, it's not all glamour, right? You know, like I'll give you an example. So nursing at our school is very popular, and people will try to say, I want to go L&D. L&D is labor and delivery, okay? And I understand why people want to do that, because seeing babies born coming to this world is a beautiful thing, right? It's a boy, it's a girl. Oh my gosh, they're so pretty. Oh my gosh. What about the negative part? When somebody has carried a baby for 9 months and it's stillborn? What about when a baby comes out and it's missing half the arm? What about when, you know, and I know you guys are like, oh my gosh, Dr. Quinn. No, it is my job to put the realism out there so you can see it's not all rainbows, right? And that everything has two sides. People, the media, the problem with the media is it tends to personify, you know, all the positive stuff, right? And that's great, guys, but there's also the negative sides, right? You know, like, for example, like for me, being a college professor, okay? For the majority of the part, I love it. I absolutely love it. There's nothing better for me than when a student graduates, reaches their goal, gets a job. You know, I've had so many students who have said, Dr. Quinn, I'm the first one to graduate in my family. My starting salary is more than my family would ever make. They're still hourly salary, and I love that. I love those moments, okay? But there's the flip side where I hate it, because I do all probation and suspension for freshmen. That means under a 2.0. And, you know, when they come and because they have to explain what happened and they don't take responsibility. Well, that professor sucked. Well, I didn't know about all the tutoring on campus. Well, you know, well, yeah, I mean, I missed that assignment, but shouldn't they have reminded me? And it's like, oh my gosh, okay. And those are the parts that doesn't make me too happy, right? And so again, it just goes to show you every job is going to have its ups and downs, but obviously you want to, the ups have got to be so much more than the downs, right? Let me see some other questions. You guys have got great questions today. Great question, Victor. Okay. So let me back up. So my undergrad is in health and exercise science from University of Oklahoma. Then I went straight from there to grad school at A&M College Station. So that's how I ended up in Texas. And so once I went to College Station to get my master's degree, I ended up getting an internship in Dallas with Lotto Sports USA. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's a soccer company, soccer and tennis company. We're the first ones to sponsor Venus and Serena Williams. I worked for them. It turned into a permanent job, but then the company got bought out and moved to New York, and I did not want to move to New York. So I had to get another job, and I ended up getting a job with the Dallas Stars, working in community relations. Loved that job. Like I said, loved that job, but was making $19,000. And $19,000 in Dallas does not go very far. Even with a roommate, even my parents helping me, I was blessed that my parents were helping me, because there's no way you can survive on $19,000 in Dallas, right? So even though I loved that job, it was very, very fun, I had to move on. So I ended up going to a job that was the opposite of the other side of my degree. Instead of the sport management side, I ended up going back to my exercise science degree, and I was an exercise physiologist at a rehab clinic. So what it was a clinic, it was a work comp clinic. You know, when you get hurt, and so they come back and they start doing, you know, exercise programs to get back to work, right? You know, when you get hurt on the job. And so I did that for a year. And then I got my best job ever, which was, it was called MBNA, which was a credit card company, and they had their own wellness and fitness center. And then I ran that. And then they paid for me to finish my PhD. At the end, they ended up getting bought out by Bank of America. So all of my pensions with Bank of America. I finished my PhD at the same time, and then I got the job at Commerce. And then I've been at Commerce now 15 years, going on 16 years. And so, you know, the sport management part, I enjoyed, Victor, but I didn't, you know, like for me, I'll be honest with you, the money part for me, I couldn't last. For other people who can, great for them, so great for them. But I literally came home, I hadn't been home in 9 months, and I came home, I walked in and my parents go, "Oh my God, you are so skinny." And I was like, really? You know, because I was working so much and I didn't even notice, and maybe I need to go on that diet again. But, you know, again, you know, it's not, if you talk to my students in sport management, the first several years are rough, very rough. If you're blessed enough to have family you can live with, roommates, whatever, and then just really tough it out, you know, there's ways to earn extra money. So when the players would go on away games, and if they took their families, their wives and stuff, they would ask us to house sit, and for $100 a day. It was, I mean, it was easy money. We got to drive their cars. That part was great. I'd be driving nice cars and people would be like, "Nice car." And I think to myself, not mine, but, and so that part was great. Right. But, at the same time, you know, it's rough the first few years. Right. But again, you know, it's just like anything else in life. Whenever, you know, when I used to hire interns at my old job, you know, and I would ask people what their goal was. I remember one intern told me, "I just want to make $50,000. And I just was like, "Do you know how long it took me to make $50,000? And you just want to come out making $50,000? I'm sorry, guys, but it doesn't work that way." Right. And so, you know, majority of jobs straight out of college, like your first job straight out of college, does not make that much. You know, yes, I know you hear of like, you know, when my friend got offered, you know, but those are like engineering jobs. Like, does that make sense? You know, like the specialized jobs that, and so, and that's the thing you've got to think about, you know, is money your motivator? Which it's okay if that is, guys, that is not a problem. Okay. You know, then you've got to think about, you've got to research about the majors that, you know, have the highest pay. But then you've also got to think, if money is your motivator, remember, you do a job 8 hours a day. So you can be making great money, but if you make great money and hate your life, hate your job, can't do anything with that money, is it really worth it? Right? So it's two sides to everything, right? But that is a great question. What else? What else do you got for me? We have about 8 more minutes. So far the questions have been great. So let me ask you this. besides, I'm afraid to pick the wrong major. You know, what, you know, when it comes to, you know, what else do you want me to answer about that? Like, meaning like, you could always ask me, you know, here's an example, okay? So the liberal arts, meaning people who major in like art or, you know, like music and stuff like that, that's great. For people who have talent in that, that's unbelievable, guys, okay? But some people also tell you that those don't make those don't make money, right? Unless you're just gonna become a teacher in it, you know, or unbelievably good. There's not that many Ansel Adams or Picasso's, right? Stuff like that. And so some people will tell you to, for example, major in business instead, and then do art on the side. And then if you're that good, you know how to run a business of like an art gallery. Does that make sense? Right? So there's ways to combine what you love, but still being smart about it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? And so, but the onus is on the student and also on me and your school to help you, but you've got to ask us, where can I get information on this? You know, what do you suggest? Does that make sense? Right? You just can't sit there and say, I didn't know that. Okay. As you can tell, that's like one of my biggest pet peeves. But okay, what else here? So one of our biggest things is getting you to volunteer and do stuff within your major. So then that way, you know, if that's what you want to do or not. So, you know, I have, like I said, I have a lot of people who want to go in the healthcare field because they think it looks cool. They want to help people, and that's fine. But if you truly like shadow somebody for a day, and it's just for a day, but still to see what they do, sometimes you won't like it. I had one who she swore she wanted to be a nurse. She hooked up with her friend who was a nurse, and they worked the ICU drug unit, which means babies who are addicted to drugs already because of their mom. And she comes back after spring break and she tells me, Dr. Quinn, I'm dropping the nursing major. I said, okay, what happened? And she said, those babies wouldn't stop crying. They were wailing the whole time. And I said, good for you. And although it seems disappointing that you're like, oh my gosh, you're changing majors. But guys, I was glad that she figured it out then. Does that make sense? You know, so then we could switch majors, you know. So she actually works at a hospital now, but she does the marketing. She does the event planning, you know, instead of doing that side. Okay. And that's my biggest advice to you, even now, you know, is get volunteer experience, shadowing experience, because that's what helps you get internships. That's what helps you get jobs, to get you to know, do I truly, truly want to do this? Because the one thing, like, for example, for people who want to be like physical therapists, okay? Again, like I said at the beginning, it's the #1 major, great job, you know? And a lot of us are interested in it because we went to it because we played sports and then got hurt. But there's a negative side to it, meaning like you have a patient, you're trying to get them to get better, right? Let's say they have a broken arm, broken shoulder, whatever it is, okay? They're supposed to come to you 2 to 3 times a week, and you've seen them 1 time in this whole last month. And they come back to you and they're like, it's been a month and you haven't fixed me. And you're like, you came in 1 time in the last month. It's been a month and you haven't fixed me. Do you guys get it? Right? It's your job to get, how do you motivate them to come see you 2 to 3 times a week like they're supposed to, do the exercises like they're supposed to. You just can't blame them and say, you suck, right? Okay. Okay. So athletic training, let me give you info on that. So A&M Commerce used to have a full degree in athletic training. The reason we no longer do isn't because we're bad. Actually, we were too good, to be honest with you. We were one of the only schools in the state of Texas where you could get nationally certified, meaning if you moved, you could work in other states. The other schools in the state of Texas only got you certified in Texas, right? Because we were harder, we were only graduating 2 students, you know, every semester, and the state does not like that, right? And so they made us cut our program. So what we do now is you major in human performance, and you can do the side hours for athletic training, meaning they'll hook you up the team and then you do all the hours, because you have to have a certain amount of hours before you can sit for the test, do all the classes and stuff. and then your degrees in human performance, and then you can go on and become a graduate assistant in athletic training at a different school, because most of the degrees are going towards master's degree anyways when it comes to that. So the head athletic trainer, who you're going to actually want to talk to isn't the head athletic trainer. Her name is Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She's in our department. She is an athletic trainer by education, and she ran the athletic training program. And so she'd be the one for all the info on, you know, how to hook you up with all the sports people, stuff like that, conferences, all that stuff. And she'll get you hooked up to the head athletic trainer. Because if you go to the head athletic trainer, he doesn't do the academic side. I know that's a little confusing, but athletics and us, we work together, but they're not academics, right? You're coming for a degree. Do you guys get what I'm trying to say? We're the academic side. So again, Savannah, her name is Sarah Mitchell, exactly the way it sounds. Okay, sarah.mitchell@tamuc.edu. All right, so we're in our last minute. What kind of questions, any other questions I need to answer before I let you guys go? You guys did amazing today. You know what questions always tell me? Questions always tell me that you're interested, you're trying to find out more info, right? As you can tell, I've been doing this a long time, and I can always tell, you know, the eagerness of a student if they've researched it, right? You know, the questions they ask tells me your interest level, right? If you just sit there and your parents ask all the questions and you don't say anything, that tells me you don't want to do it, or that you need to tell them, Mom, Dad, I love you, but I can handle this, right? Because it's college, okay? And so, you know, I'm here to help you guys. My name, I know, is kind of odd because the H throws people off, but you can always, when you get an automatic advisor, and so you can always ask them, Dr. Quinn did my, you know, my orientation. I'd love to talk to her. They'll give you my email. It's not a problem. I'm the only Dr. Quinn on campus. So I really enjoyed talking to you guys today. You guys did a great job on the questions. And then just remember, always, always, always ask questions. It's not a problem whatsoever. Okay? Have a great day today and stay safe.